Hey, what's up, nerds? It's Shane with Guys at Magic. Today, I'm with Hunter. Say what's up, Hunter.
What's up?
And we're gonna go over your $100 upgrade to the Riders of Rohan, the Precon coming out for Lord of the Rings. Isn't that right?
That is correct. I got the opportunity to take this deck tech and make it better.
Awesome, man. Well, before we jump into it, do you just want to talk about the Face Commander and what you want to do with this deck, or I guess what the plan for this deck is?
Yeah, so this deck's pretty awesome out of the box. The face commander for the deck is Eowyn Shieldmaiden. She is 2, a blue, a red, and a white for a 5/4 legendary creature human knight. It's got first strike. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if another human entered the battlefield under your control this turn, create 2/2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. Then, if you control 6 or more humans, draw a card. So AON, obviously, human tribal. That's what matters here in the deck, especially getting a human in pre-combat because this trigger only happens at the beginning of combat. Remember that. So it can't be like attack. You make humans. That's not going to trigger AON. So I'm really trying to focus on making humans come in prior to combat, and then also just additional card draw when you have 6 or more humans. That's awesome.
Very much so. A1 does seem good. What about the other commander, though?
Yeah, the other commander in the deck, if you wanted to change that one, it was Aragorn, King of Gondor. It is 1, a blue, a red, and a white for a 4/4 legendary creature human noble. It's got vigilance and lifelink. It says when it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. And whenever Aragorn attacks, up to 1 target creature can't block this turn. If you're the monarch, creatures can't block this turn. So, 2 very different cards that can be the helm of the deck. Aragorn really wants to be all about the Monarch and have as many Monarch cards as you can. So, you can only imagine that this deck had a little bit of spice of the Monarch scattered throughout it. And it absolutely did, and it's pretty cool. But for this build, I am going with Eowyn Shieldmaiden. That is the face commander. We are going human tribal. We're going to swing wide and swing hard.
Sounds awesome, dude. So, if humans is the name of the game, what are some new additions you're going to be adding to this deck?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I like to go ahead and look at the main set of every Precon deck that it came from and go ahead and just pick and pluck whatever cards I feel is best suited into this deck. So these first 3 cards I'm talking about all came from the main set, so go and pick up these singles, or hopefully you can open them up in a pack. The first one, Horn of Gondor, 3 generic mana for a legendary artifact. It says when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. You can also pay 3, tap it, create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of humans you control. So, not only does it proc when it enters, but you can just continue to double up the amount of humans you have over and over every turn, which will make our commander trigger if you do it before combat.
Oh yeah, dude, token generation. Let's go.
Token generation. We got basically Krenko on an artifact. It's incredible. Flowering of the White Tree is a brand new enchantment that costs 2 white mana. It is a legendary enchantment that says legendary creatures you control get +2/+1 and have ward 1. And non-legendary creatures you control get +1/+1. So the legendary creature thing that gives everything +2/+1 is awesome and ward 1. So not only does it pump up all of our legendaries, but our commander as well, because it is a legendary, gives it a little bit of extra protection with that ward 1. And all of the tokens we're going to be making, since they're non-legendary, they're getting bumped as well. This is a fantastic little 2 mana anthem effect.
I was gonna say this is a automatic include when we saw this spoiled.
Oh yeah, this card is fantastic, and I plan to throw it in every single white deck I have. And what's an AON deck if I'm not throwing AON the other one? So this is AON Fearless Knight, 2, a red and a white for a 3/4 legendary creature human knight. It has haste, and it says when AON Fearless Knight enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls with greater power, and legendary creatures you control gain protection from each of that creature's colors until end of turn. So if Eowyn comes in and we have something that's bigger on the board, that's automatically exiled forever. It's not until end of turn or until this card goes away. That's just straight up exiled. And then it also gives all of our legendaries protection of, hopefully, if our opponent's running 3 colors and we exile something that's 3 colors, protection from basically our opponent. And we can just swing in with all of our legendary creatures.
Very mean card. Very, very good upgrade though, I would agree.
Yeah, Eowyn inside Eowyn seems pretty good.
All right, so those were cool cards from the main set of the Lord of the Rings. What are some other good cheap humans we're gonna throw in this deck?
Yeah, so the good cheap humans. These are all one drops. So they come in quickly and they do amazing things. First and foremost, champion of the parish. It is one white mana for a 1/1 creature human soldier. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on champion of the parish. So, champion of the parish is entered and our commander starts triggering. It's going to get 3 counters every single time a human comes in. If we're getting Horn of Gondor down, this is going to grow so fast. Champion of the parish can get out of control very quickly in this deck.
Turn one champion of the parish needs to die on site.
Yeah, but what about turn one Mother of Runes? This is one white mana for a 1/1 creature human cleric. You could tap to target creature you control, gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So just a little extra protection for everything on our board. If you're trying to target something, specifically Eowyn, tap Mother of Runes and give protection.
Yeah, I feel like this goes in pretty much any white deck. Mom is a great protection card.
And one of the best turn one white drops you can do is Sarah Ascendant. It is one white mana for a 1/1 creature human monk. It's got lifelink. And as long as you have 30 or more life, Sarah Ascendant gets +5/+5 and has flying. So this card was printed before EDH was a thing. So 40 life that you start with, this comes down as a 6/6 lifelink with flying. It is insane.
Yeah, I think all three of these cards on the screen right now are all going to be very annoying to see on turn one, as
Yep.
your opponent, of course.
Oh, absolutely. I hope to get one of them at least. And if we're playing later in the game, this doesn't take up a whole lot of mana, so it's going to trigger Eowyn later.
Those are some great cheap humans. What about something that might be more of the annoying variety, Hunter?
Yeah, so what's humans without making things annoying? So, Dranith Magistrate is going into the deck. It is 1 and a white for a 1/3 creature human wizard. Says your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. So that includes graveyards. That includes anything that they're trying to cast for free from exile. And oh, that's right, the command zone. You can't cast your commanders.
This card sucks.
One of the best humans you can throw in a human deck right here, Dranith Magistrate.
Yep, this is a no-brainer for sure.
Another annoying thing for our opponents to deal with is Thalia, Heretic Cathar. 2 and a white for a 3/2 legendary creature human soldier. It's got first strike. And it says creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Straight to the point. We're going to make things annoying. Things are entering tapped for our opponents, allowing us to swing in.
There are just so many good humans, man. So much, too many.
It's the name of the game, baby.
So you showed us some cheap humans, some annoying humans. What about just something that might help us push for lethal?
So yeah, so let's push for some extra damage here. We're throwing in Thalia's Lieutenant, which is 1 and a white for a 1/1 creature human soldier. It says when it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each other human you control. And whenever another human enters the battlefield under control, put a +1/+1 counter on Thalia's Lieutenant. So not only this can come in later if our board is huge and give our team a +1/+1 counter, but every time Eowyn triggers, this is growing, 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 similar to Champion of the Parish. It's crazy.
Yeah, this card can get out of hand way too quickly, especially in this deck, dude.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of when our things get bigger, let's add Blade Historian. Blade Historian is 4 red or white mana for a 2/3 creature human cleric. It says attacking creatures you control have double strike. So, simple, to the point. We are doubling up the damage. We're swinging in. Watch out for lethal.
Yeah, for a deck that wants to go wide and turn sideways, this is a great. This is a great human.
And I love the fact that the red or white hybrid mana, you can, if you don't have the right colors, you can just kind of mana fix it.
Yeah, man, you could pay all red, you could pay all white.
Hmm.
So those look like they were all the human creatures you were adding in there. What about some instants and sorceries?
Yep, instants and sorceries that I feel like are very needed in this deck. First and foremost, Mass Appeal. 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Draw a card for each human you control. We're going to have so many humans. This one card can draw us easily 3+ cards just by playing it.
But even only drawing like two for this dude, 2 for 3, that's great value.
Yeah, Mass appeal. A perfect card for a human deck. And since we're blue, this fits in the deck, so. Call the Copper Coats is 2 and a white for an instant. It says it's got Strive, which means the spell costs 1 and a white more to cast for each target beyond the first. Choose any number of target opponents. Create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures those opponents control. So if someone also is going wide, we're just going to catch right up to them with this one card.
Perfect.
Perfect. Humans, baby. And flawless maneuvers going into the deck. It is 2 and a white for an instant. It says if you control a commander, you may cast a spell without paying its mana cost. Creatures you control gain indestructible to enter. So because we are a going wide deck, it is very susceptible to board wipes. So just as a little protection from board wipes, if our commander's out on the field, we just play this for free. Someone might think they're safe because we're tapped down. Guess what? Not at all.
You're never safe from a flawless maneuver, dude.
Flawless.
What do you have to show us in the enchantments department?
Yeah, so when I build these decks, I always love adding enchantments to where I feel like I go too overboard with enchantments, but these three are fantastic in this deck. First up, Cathar's Crusade. It's 3 and 2 white. Enchantment says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So, if Eowyn's on the field, we add a human. That human gets a +1/+1. Combat happens. We get 2 more creatures that come in. Everything on the team now gets +2/+2, including those 2/2s that are now 4/4s. Cathar's Crusade is going to be out of hand, and the art on Cathar's Crusade alone just feels like it belongs in the deck.
Very on flavor for you, yes.
Yeah, it's a great card. It's going to be very mean. Speaking of being mean, Impact Tremors, 1 and a red. Enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, Impact Tremors deals 1 damage to each opponent. Now, it's only 1 damage. However, when we're making a bunch of tokens, every time these tokens come in, we're just pinging our opponents, and it's going to get super out of hand quickly to where our opponents are going to get pretty annoyed with us.
I can speak from experience. Yes, Hunter. Your opponents will want to kill this creature. Your opponents will want to kill this card as quick as they can.
Yeah, I know. I killed yours when we played last time.
Yeah, I was sad.
Apologies. Outlaw's Merriment. 1, a red, 2 white. Enchantment. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, choose 1 at random. Create a red and white creature token with those characteristics. You can either make a 3/1 human warrior with trample and haste, a 2/1 human cleric with lifelink and haste, or a 1/2 human rogue with haste, and when this creature enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to any target. So this enchantment just comes in and sits and always makes sure that we have a human entering the battlefield before combat. So it will always trigger Eowyn if this is on the field with Eowyn.
That is fantastic, dude. I feel like that's exactly what you want to be doing, like you said in the beginning.
Yeah, Outlaws Merriment. This is an automatic include. Go out and pick this up.
And lastly, did you do anything to the mana base?
I certainly did. Uh, First and foremost, they reprinted Castle Arvindale with awesome Lord of the Rings art. I specifically want you to go out and pick this exact copy up if you can go and buy the single because it's Lord of the Ring theme. Put it in the Lord of the Rings deck. Keep it on flavor. It is Castle Ardenvale, but it is Metacelled Golden Hall of Adoras. In case you didn't remember what Castle Ardenvale does, it is a land that enters the battlefield tapped unless I control the planes. You can tap it to add a white, or you can pay 2 and 2 white to tap it to create a 1/1 white human creature token. So, why didn't they throw this card into the deck itself? They want you to go and find this card on its in the wild, essentially.
100% they do.
Yeah, a land that makes a human feels like it needs to be in the human tribe deck. But the other ones I'm adding in here are all 3 of the bond lands. That's Sea of Clouds, Spectator Seating, and Training Center. Very simple to the point. They all tap for their respective colors, and they all say they enter the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. And we are playing commanders, so that is more than likely going to happen.
Yeah, those are all pretty quick includes for me as well, bud. Well, I like your ads. Now we get to the point where You got to make room for all those awesome ads. So, want to run through some of the cuts you're doing to make room for all those cards?
Yeah, so this is the sad part about these awesome themed decks, similar to the Warhammer decks. We just gotta kind of take apart the Lord of the Rings art and the Lord of the Rings cards because they personally are not good enough to be in the deck. But we threw in some awesome things to make the deck run better. So, first one gone is Bastion Protector. It's 2 and a white for a 3/3 creature human soldier. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have indestructible. If our commander is not on the board, this card does nothing. So I felt like just the value by itself, having to have the commander on the field, it's not good enough. Dearly Departed is 4 and 2 white for a 5/5 creature spirit. It has flying. It says, as long as Dearly Departed is in your graveyard, each human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. 1, this is 6 mana. 2, this is not a human. 3, this wants to be in the graveyard for it to do anything to our humans, and we don't have a way to just throw it into the graveyard.
Yeah, you got to hope your opponents will block it or something, I guess.
Block it or kill it or board wipe, and this will be on the field. I don't know. It's not a human. It's leaving the battlefield. Speaking of not being human, Gray Host Reinforcements is 3 and a white for a 1/1 creature spirit soldier. It's got flying and ward 3. Says when it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on Gray Host Reinforcement equal to the number of creatures exiled this way. Very strange card to put in this deck. I get it. It's kind of on flavor with Lord of the Rings, except it doesn't do anything our deck wants to do. So, not a human, doesn't do anything for humans, just cares about itself. I don't know.
Yep, I feel you on that one, bud. Get it out of here.
Moving on. We're getting rid of some cards that I felt like helped our opponents that I didn't want in the deck. Humble Defector is 1 and a red for a 2/1 creature human rogue. You can tap it to draw 2 cards, and then target opponent gains control of Humble Defector. Activate only during your turn. So, yeah, we're drawing 2 cards is cool, but giving our opponent the opportunity to draw 2 as well, not cool.
Not cool, because then you can give it to somebody, and then they can just never give it back to you and give it to somebody else.
That's true, man. I'm not trying to help people. Archivist of Gondor is 2 and a blue for a 2/3 creature human advisor. Says when your commander deals combat damage to a player, if there's no monarch, you become the monarch. And at the beginning of the monarch's end step, that player draws a card. So again, helping our opponents if they're the monarch for whatever reason and this card's on the field. Not only do they get to draw from the monarch, but my card says you get to draw 2 cards now.
Nah.
Nah, not doing it for me. Denethor Stone Seer is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary creature human noble. Says when it enters the battlefield, scry 2. You can also pay 3 and a red, tap it, sacrifice Denethor, target player becomes the monarch. Denethor deals 3 damage to any target. Flavor wise, fantastic card. Paying red like he's lighting himself on fire and killing himself and making someone else king. That is exactly what happened in Lord of the Rings. But I just don't see the value in this one card to do that. Dealing 3 damage to any target doesn't really matter. Paying 4 to become the monarch, you can target yourself. That's okay. Scrying 2, This the card is all for the flavor and not for the abilities, so it's getting out of the deck.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, bud.
Palace Jailer, also one that I'm cutting out, is 2 and 2 white for a 2/2 creature, human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. And when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until an opponent becomes the monarch. So it is exiling a creature, but then it also kind of incentivizes that opponent to really attack you, not only to get their creature back, but to become the monarch. So Palace Jailer, I felt like just put a target on my back.
Yeah, the unfortunate part of getting the creature back, plus the card you added, I feel like just does something a little better than this.
Yeah, the other Eowyn kind of did it just a little better, just exiling something else that was bigger forever.
Yeah, since you don't really care about being the monarch too much anymore.
And the final card I wanted to talk about in the creature category is an apology to everybody because he is a beloved character in Lord of the Rings. I am cutting Gimli of the Glittering Caves. It's 2 in red for a 1/1 legendary creature, Dwarf Warrior. Got double strike. Says when another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Gimli of the Glittering Caves. And whenever Gimli deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. It's sad. Gimli, I love Gimli in Lord of the Rings. This was a really hard cut, but I'm cutting it because he's not a human. And I'm not entirely sure why he's in the deck other than just lore, because he's giving himself counters and he's creating treasure when he connects. I know he has double strike, so essentially if he does connect, he can make 2 treasures. But in the grand scheme of things, him not being a human, I gotta take him out.
Yeah, dude, when we do these upgrades, you kinda focus on a game plan, and he just doesn't really fit your game plan.
He does not. A dwarf warrior in a human tribal isn't gonna do it.
Well, you added some instant sorcery cards. Are you gonna be cutting anything in return for that?
Yeah, I'm cutting a couple sorceries. Some of this one might be a little controversial because I've read a lot of love for this card, but in my build, it's not gonna make the cut. So Call for Aid is 4 and a red for a sorcery. It says gain control of all creatures target opponent controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures. They gain haste until end of turn. You can't attack that player this turn. You can't sacrifice those creatures this turn. So essentially, you're taking every creature from someone and swinging them at someone else, which is an interesting strategy because you're going to make a target to 2 players immediately. I feel like either you're attacking the player that has blocks that can block and kill all of the creatures that you just stole. I really wanted to attack the person I take things with. So it's kind of like a weird goad in a way that's not goading because you're using the creatures. I don't know. It's not doing it for me. Call for aid.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that you can't sacrifice them either. It's very yeah, I don't know.
You can't sacrifice them. You can't attack the player you took them from. You're just kind of stuck with them. I don't know. 5 mana, I want to do something else. And we have another really cool sorcery in the deck that's called Taunt from the Rampart, which is a goad mechanic. And I think that is so much better than Call for Aid. It's pretty wild.
I agree.
I'm also getting rid of Earthquake. Earthquake is X and a red for a sorcery that says it deals X damage to each creature without flying in each player. Um, I don't know why this was in the deck other than for flavor purposes. Like, we are low to the ground humans, so this kind of just wipes us out. And if anyone else is flying or anything, they're just safe. I just Earthquake's getting out of the deck.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you making any other cuts to some permanents?
Yeah, I'm getting rid of some artifacts here. I know we only added really 1, but I felt like these 2 can leave the deck. Heirloom Blade is 3 generic mana for an artifact equipment. It says equipped creature gets +3/+1. And whenever equipped creature dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with it. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Equip cost of 1. So while the bump of +3/+1 is cool, this really doesn't do anything unless our creature dies. We don't have a way to sacrifice our own creatures, so we're just kind of hoping to proc this when things die. It just wasn't doing it. I felt like equipment itself wasn't really needed in the deck since we're going so wide. But yeah, Heirloom Blade not making the cut. Wayfarer's Bauble also leaving is 1 generic mana for an artifact. You can pay 2, tap it, sacrifice Wayfarer's Bauble, search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. We have a lot of lands in the deck, and we have a lot of mana rocks in the deck. This deck had a ton of awesome mana rocks right out of the box, and a couple of creatures in the deck that also can gain us a bunch of land without having to sacrifice themselves. I think this is not really needed, so Wayfarer's Bauble leaving the deck.
Those make sense to me, man. And in your additions, you added some enchantments. Are you gonna be cutting anything to make room for those?
I did say I loved enchantments in the deck. So here's what's going to happen. I'm removing some enchantments to make room for the awesome enchantments. First one, Court of Ire is 3 and 2 red for an enchantment. It says when it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, Court of Ire deals 2 damage to any target. If you're the monarch, it deals 7 damage instead. That's cool. I like that. dealing 2 damage if you're not the Monarch, 7 if you are, can get really annoying. But I'm trying to throw in cooler enchantments. This one was one of the ones that didn't make the cut.
Yeah, you moved away from Monarch. It makes sense.
Fealty to the Realm is 4 and a blue for an enchantment aura. It says enchant creature. When fealty to the realm enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. The monarch controls enchanted creature. Enchanted creature attacks each combat if able and can't attack you. So, this is a very interesting new card here. You're most likely enchanting your opponent's things. You take control of that because you're now the monarch. And if someone takes the monarch from you, they get your opponent's creature, or your opponent gets their creature back. But that creature can't attack you. I just felt like the politics of moving someone's creature around the table as long as they have monarch, I didn't see the need for it. Oath of Earl, it is 3, a red and a white for an enchantment saga. Its first lore counter says create 2/1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Second lore counter says create 2/2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. And the third and final lore counter says put an indestructible counter on top of one target human. You become the monarch. It's one of the ones that I looked at last and really had to debate if I needed to cut this or not. And at the end of the day, I kind of felt like 5 mana to maybe get this blown up after it made 2/1/1s. It didn't do enough for me at the beginning. So I'm the other modes, all of the modes are awesome, especially when it procs our commander if our commander's on the field. But I wanted the other enchantments as well.
And lastly, you added some good lands. Are you going to cut anything to make room for them?
Yeah, we're cutting more than we added. We lowered the curve a bit on this deck, so we didn't need as many lands. So I'm cutting Field of Ruin and Throne of the High City. Field of Ruin is a land that you can tap to add a colorless, and you can pay 2 to tap it to sacrifice Field of Ruin. Destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card, puts that onto the battlefield, then shuffles. Here's the problem with Field of Ruin. I mentioned this in a previous video, but if you do go ahead and attack someone's non-basic land, guess what? The entire table goes and gets a basic land. So you may be punishing one player, but you're helping everybody.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Throne of the High City is another land that comes in and taps for a colorless. You can also pay 4, tap it, sacrifice Throne of the High City. You become the monarch. A lot of the Monarch cards I did kind of remove. Monarch is a very cool mechanic, and if you are building around Aragorn, I suggest keeping this in the deck. But we're kind of focusing more on the human tribe things, so the Monarch cards are a little bit less, and Throne of the High City spends 5 of your mana sources to make it become the Monarch. I just felt like it wasn't worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, a bit expensive.
Tranquil Cove and Windscarred Crag are the 2 lands that enter the battlefield tapped, and they can tap for the respective colors. And when they do enter the battlefield, you gain 1 life. The other bond lands we added, they don't enter the battlefield tapped, which is awesome. And the 1 life here is kind of not really worth it.
Slow lands are never as good as fast lands.
That is true. And we are just eliminating 1 single plains and 1 single island from the deck.
All right, man. Well, that's all the cuts and the ads, right?
That is going to do it.
So we gave you $100 of funny money. What did you come out with?
Yep, so if you went through and added every single card, including the very cool artwork for Castle Ardenvale, the total for this deck is going to be $100.63. Now, that price will probably come down a little bit because these are pre-order prices. The set hasn't been officially released yet. So when it does, you go out and pick up the singles. It might even be a little cheaper than what you see here.
Perfect. I'm sure it's going to drop a little bit. So that's what everyone loves to see.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, do you have any other closing thoughts on this deck? I think it's a pretty strong upgrade.
Yeah, closing thoughts. I feel like Eowyn Shieldmaiden is the fantastic Jeskai human tribal commander everyone's been looking for. If Jeskai is your thing, then I definitely pick up this deck. I actually have this deck personally pre-ordered myself. Cannot wait for it to get here to play against my friends. It's going to be incredible. I'm very excited, and I'm really excited to play against you guys when we do our $100 upgrade battle against all of the Lord of the Rings decks. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then the 300 one as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that battle as well, man. Gonna bring some spice to the table.
Oh, yeah.
If you made it this far in the video, leave Hunter a comment letting him know what you think of his upgrades. Maybe he forgot a card. Maybe you had another idea for the deck. Leave a comment. Let him know. We like reading stuff. Hit that like button if you liked the video. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any more of these upgrades that are coming out. In the description, you'll find the link to the Mox Field so you can build this deck. You'll also find links to our TikTok, our Instagram, our Twitter. It's all going to be just @GuysAtMagic. Follow us on all of our social. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Later.